Well, ladies and gentlemen, the great leader has spoken. That's right. If you're expecting a pay rise, tough luck, because you can only have a pay rise if you are productive. That's what it should do. Reward your productivity. Now, of course, if you know anything about, well, the UK economy, productivity has been a severe issue in the UK economy. Why is that? Well, mostly down to the fact that UK companies, including the government itself, have not been investing in tools, productivity, in workforce enhancements that it could have been doing for years. And as a result, we are one of the least productive nations in the world, and at least when it comes to developing economies. This shouldn't surprise anyone. This shouldn't shock anyone. But the idea for Rishi Sunak to come out and said, yeah, workers shouldn't have a pay rise. You only get one if you're productive. Well, in the case that we constantly see throughout all the UK, you have workers on 0-hour contracts, sometimes doing only 2 or 3 hours a week, working whatever possible hours the company gives them, unable to produce that productivity because the company doesn't invest in them, doesn't invest in machinery or anything like that that would, help a worker be more productive. But that is the general case that we see in most of the UK industries. And this is because of years of underinvestment and underthinking of just what the UK actually needs. Hence why I'm actually quite excited about the green economy that Rachel Reeves talks about that she wants to do. So I am very, very happy, and hopefully at the Labour conference, we will actually see what that entails, what that means, because it is something we drastically need. A proper, actual economic industrial strategy, something that we have not seen since the 70s. Just bear that fact in mind that we have not had a strategy since the 70s. Yeah, it's kind of shocking. But as we said, the Supreme Leader has spoken. So let's get into his comments. And of course, the absolute hypocrisy of his comments, should we say, faced at workers, when in reality, maybe the CEOs should maybe also be paying attention, or should we say, probably should be the ones in the crosshairs. So before we go getting into this and these comments, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and one of there's a link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. There is the YouTube thank you button, and of course the Pony Club down below as well. So, what did our fearless leader have to say? Well, this was hang on. When we get to the right one, there we go. This is what he had to say in an ITV News interview. He said this: as a general rule, we need pay rises that over time are substantive, and that means pay rises that are focused on rewarding productivity increases. That's just a kind of ordinary. That's what people would expect. That's what that's why we improve our productivity, that pay can rise greater. That's what I want to see. I want people to be paid more, but that means we have to have a growing economy where productivity is rising. And instead, that's not what we see. And if anything, Sunak, given his comments there, is clearly making a case to businesses, saying, if you do not, if your workforce is not productive, well, you don't have to give them a pay rise. And remember, this is the Prime Minister of the UK saying this. And that's how I can honestly interpret his words. If your workforce isn't productive, just don't even bother giving them a pay rise. And there are multiple reasons why workforce might not be productive. But because a company, quote, is not improving its productivity, does not mean that that business might not be making money. And in some cases, might not be making millions in profit off the labor of those workers that it is not giving a share of those profits that they have because, well, as Rishi Sunak just said, well, you don't have to give them a pay rise because after all, they didn't increase their productivity. And I just want to go onto the comments of the TUC because this really does highlight the big problem that we see in this because it is, as always, it's not a cost of living crisis, it's a cost of greed crisis. So where is it? Here. So yeah, the Trade Union Congress General Secretary Paul Newark said on Tuesday that real wages are still worth less today than they were in 2008, after the longest pay squeeze in 200 years. And it came at the same time that unemployment and insecure work are shooting up. An analysis in June by the TUC also found that pay rises for the top 10% of UK earners, including city bosses, had clearly outstripped the rest of the workforce and had been a prime driver of recent inflation and interest rates. So there you have it. The problem in certainly the private sector is that you have these big bosses taking out millions. I mean, just look at Wilco. The Wilco scenario is the prime example. You have a series of shops throughout the UK, highly successful, or at least on the surface, highly successful. The bosses take out millions to give to themselves, only to find out a couple of weeks later they don't have the money to pay their debts, which now means the entire, uh, entire chain has to go into administration. Workers aren't going to get paid, which is ultimately going to affect some of their pensions as well. But don't worry, because the CEOs walk away with millions of pounds in their pocket. In fact, they'll probably go on to be CEOs at other companies. And of course, in the public sector, we have the exact same person like Rishi Sunak saying these junior doctors, they don't deserve a pay rise. No, they're just going to be more productive to earn it. If you've listened to some of these junior doctors, they work themselves to almost near exhaustion. And yet, all they're asking is a restitution of what they used to be paid. Why? Because of Tory austerity. And remember, go back to the days of David Cameron, who said that this Tory austerity, that we were all in it together, is only going to last 4 or 5 years. And then we were told, oh, it's going to last 4 or 5 years more. And then, of course, quietly, Brexit happened and the Tories have stopped talking about austerity altogether. And you may remember the Grenfell fire was meant to be an end to austerity, according to many Tories, but that's not what has happened. Public spending of these vital services, such as the NHS and pretty much everything else, has not been brought back into line of what it used to be. And these whole doctor strikes that we're seeing in the NHS are from these doctors saying, hey, pay us what we used to be worth or what we used to get. And yet Rishi Sunak is fighting tooth and nail not to pay these people, because if he pays them, well, then now he might have to pay the civil servants, because there is potentially on the horizon, it got called off, I believe, at the last moment, A civil service strike, which would be interesting if that happened. See how the Tories would get out of that. But overall, this whole argument that, oh, you should only pay workers if they're more productive is a load of complete and absolute nonsense. You see many businesses throughout the entire world using this argument, saying, oh, well, we can't pay you because, you weren't as productive as you were last year. Meanwhile, they're raking in millions of pounds in profit. And yet that is not going to reward the workers. It tends to go, as was said there, into the top 10%, which has fueled inflation far more than anything else. As we've said before at the beginning of this video, this is not a cost of living crisis. This is a cost of greed crisis. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.